Hello, my name is Andrew Carapiet from Media Friendly, and this is a short presentation on proactive communications. In other words, how to communicate your success stories succinctly and effectively. First thing I would say is the first thing you need to do is to have three key messages. Three nuggets of gold. And they can't just be any old nuggets of gold. You've got to think very carefully about what you actually say, because you live and die on the quality of your key messages. I work in the public sector, and what I tend to find is that wherever I go, I keep hearing the same old key messages which don't always work with the media. So if I'm working for a primary care trust, an NHS trust, a council, a housing association, a think tank, a government agency, a charity or whatever, when somebody comes up with three key messages, they often say these three things: partnership working, service delivery, stakeholder involvement. And as a journalist, my heart sinks and I fall asleep, because that's effective communication internally or when you speak to your partner organisations. But the public, they have to pay 60p for their local newspaper. They have to pay £1 for the Guardian newspaper. They have to pay the BBC TV licence. So they want to hear something interesting. So what I say to you is try and make these key messages interesting. So one of the things you can be doing, let me give you an example. I recently worked with the Stop Smoking lobby with regard to the ban on smoking in public places. And I was working with a team who gave me three very effective key messages. The first thing they did was to say to me that this is the most important piece of legislation in public health for 60 years, since the Clean Air Act cleaned up the smog from big cities like London, Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester. The second key message they gave me was they're going to save thousands of lives every year. This simple piece of legislation will prevent thousands of people dying from lung cancer through passive smoking, in the same way that Roy Castle, some older people might remember Roy Castle, who died from lung cancer caused by passive smoking. And the third key message is 70% of smokers support the smoking ban, something which you might not expect. So those are three very effective key messages compared to what I said before. So why are these three key messages more effective than the other ones? Well, when I was a journalist, I used to apply two tests to your press releases which you used to send me. The first test was the so what test. And the so what test does what it says on the tin. So let's look at these smoking key messages. Most important day in public health for 60 years? Tick. Yes, that passes the so what test. Saving thousands of lives every year? Arguably even more important. So 2 out of these 3 messages pass the so what test. The third message was slightly different. 70% of smokers support the smoking ban. Well, I was surprised at that. I would have thought 70% wouldn't. The reason they do, of course, is because at any one point in time, 70% of smokers want to give up. But they can't, because they're hooked on nicotine, which is as addictive as a Class A drug, as heroin. So the second key point is surprise. Tell me something I don't know, I'll be interested. If you state the blindingly obvious to me all of the time or speak in public sector jargon, I'll switch off. So I think that's the trick. Now, what's the formula for actually using these 3 key messages? Well, it's as easy as ABC. So the first part of the A, answer the question. You may have noticed it's not what the politicians do, but it's what I want you to do, because I think the public trust you far more than they trust politicians. Politicians are not trusted anymore. So I think you're real people trying to do a good job, and I think that you should answer the question, not ignore it. Second thing you should do is you need to bridge, because what you need to do is not follow the journalist's agenda, but set your own agenda. So you answer the question, you bridge, it's a link. It's a link like and, however, meanwhile, also, to see. And the C part is communicate. And you've got your 3 key messages, you answer the question, you bridge, you insert one of your 3 key messages with the wow factor in every answer you give, regardless of the question being asked. So then you put the second key message in for the second question, the third for the third question, and for other questions you either repeat some of these key messages or you just say it in a different way. So less is more, repetition is good. If you get 2 out of these 3 key messages in the newspaper the next morning, on the radio the next morning, you have done your job. That's how to prepare, that's how to communicate proactively, that's how to do these success stories in a very simple and effective way. I'm Andrew Carapiet from Media Friendly. Thank you for listening to me.